This is Nyoka, your holistic health and wellness coach. And I have a very special guest with me today. We met on LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn be the way is what do they call the LinkedIn, the golf resort of the social media. That's what they call LinkedIn. That's what they call it. But I met this man on LinkedIn and we got to talking because we both embrace holistic health and wellness. So I said, what a better way to continue our introduction and continue to get to know each other better by talking it up on Authen-Tea-Cally Nyoka. So today we have with us Will Loiseau. And
Loiseau.
say it again.
Loiseau.
Loiseau.
There you go.
All right, Loiseau.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask Will Loiseau to tell us some more about who he is, what he does, and how he does what he does. So I'm going to turn it over to Will.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak on this platform. So yeah, I am a health span optimization strategist, and my company is True Iron Will. And pretty much what I do is I work with individuals to help them to get the most potential out of their lifespan, because we all have a limited amount of time on this planet, and a lot of us are, not living to our fullest potential. We're passing away way too early, and we're suffering from chronic diseases. We're suffering from other ailments and limitations that many ways are preventable and also reversible. Of course, we do have some genetic limitations. We have, that's everybody. But at the same time, we should be living our fullest lives. So that's what I pretty much do as far as personal training and holistic sports nutritional consultation. And there's many things that are incorporated into those, those skills.
Yes. So immediately it's the fitness and the nutrition piece that I gravitate towards when I want to talk about this conversation, right? I asked you earlier on before we started recording, I was asking you about your name, and you told me that your cultural background is Haitian, and your name, your last name is French, and you wanted to. Well, we were kind of going into what your last name means. So since we were going there, let's finish that. I think it might be very important to how what we're going to get into.
Yeah, so loiseau is a French word, and it means the bird. So if you were to write it in French, like le in French, le is the, and loiseau is the rest of the word. So it means the bird. So if you were to write it, it would be L apostrophe Oiseau. So that's pretty much what it means, is the bird in French.
The bird. Okay. So thank you so very much for explaining your last name, what it means. I think it's important to tap into those aspects of ourselves. I recently watched an excellent documentary by Dr. Yaba Blay, and the beginning of the documentary started off with her name song. And as many of us who have names that are not American or English, when we say our names to people, a lot of people, they don't say it the way that we say it in our culture, in our traditions. And so to hear you explain your name just helps me align with that name song, the cadence and how it rolls off of our tongues. So thank you so much for explaining that to us. So let's get into this fitness and nutrition piece that's so very important. I want to start off by talking about veganism and what that means to our body. Look, he's chuckling. She's on it. She's not going to miss. No, I want to talk about veganism. Is it right for everyone? Is it something that we all need to strive towards? I would love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying that when I got into this, it was for health reasons, right? Because I started to see a lot of my family members and a lot of friends, a lot of coworkers around, and including myself, suffering from symptoms and passing away earlier than I thought. And I started to ask a lot of questions. So I wasn't getting my questions answered from the traditional methods. My schooling, I got a college degree and I took a lot of nutrition classes in high school and all of that. And I didn't get the answers that I was looking for. So it was more or less trial and error. And you're trying different types of diets and different types of lifestyles. And I'm still suffering from these symptoms. So to make a long story short, I guess I was in a state of my life where I was just really ready to receive the information. And I met some people that were talking about vegetarianism. And I was like, how are you surviving without eating meat? Like, how you doing that? And they weren't frail. They were working out. They were into fitness and health, and that was the right type of environment for me to start learning. So I started to try it, and I got onto this. I guess now looking back, I know it was a junk food vegetarian diet. A lot of protein
Junk
shakes and
food, junk food, vegetarian. Hold on,
yeah,
hold on. Junk food, vegetarian diet. Tell
that's
us
right.
more. Tell
Now, I
us.
didn't know this at the time, right? So I was eating a lot of bean burritos and guacamole and sour cream because that was, I guess, acceptable in that vegetarian diet or whatever. And granola bars and protein shakes and anything as long as it wasn't meat, it was acceptable. And I felt great, what I mean? Even by making that transition, my energy improved and I started feeling a lot better than I was feeling. But then I went back. So I ended up going back to eating meat and eating chicken and all that type of stuff. And symptoms started coming back, right? And then that's when I came back from a traumatic experience, the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. And I had
Oh,
gone through,
God, you were there?
right. So I was there and I was there actually at the time. So I got there the day before for my grandmother's funeral, and I was there at the time in Port-au-Prince, right in the epicenter during the earthquake. And I spent time there afterwards. And after seeing everything that I saw and going through everything that I went through, I just knew that I had to detox in some type of way. So I had already been reading about fasting, reading about it online, and it just something just told me, you know what, this is the time to do it. So I tried to do a juice fast, and I did 3 days of just eating fruit. And it was actually based off of an email that my brother had sent me. And everything that the email said that I was going to experience actually happened after the 3 days. So I could visibly see my eyes were wider. I had more energy. I was going to the bathroom a lot, so it was definitely cleansing, which I knew I needed a detox. And it just stuck with me because I had never experienced such a rapid transformation. I mean, that's 3 days, and I experienced that change. And my body was just welcoming that change. You know what I'm saying? So at the bottom of the email, there were some names. And I just did more and more research, and that led me to the a lifestyle movement, right? They called it um, natural, holistic, right? These words that I had never been exposed to. So I started
Mm.
researching on this stuff, and one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming certified. So I did a lot of studying, with reading big books, and taking these courses. Ended up getting certified, and I said, if I can do this type of transformation to my own health, well, let me see what I can do as far as helping other people, because I know I'm not the only one who's suffering from these type of symptoms. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much how it started. And then I got certified as far as being a personal trainer. And I said, let me marry the two, and let me try to make an impact.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You keep saying symptoms I was experiencing symptoms. Okay, so I'm going to ask, What symptoms did you experience before and after?
Oh man, I'm not even going to be able to name all these because it's such a long list. We're talking about high cholesterol, had allergies,
Mhm.
boils, the common flu. Everyone gets sick twice a year. Fevers. Skin rashes, constipation. These are the type of things that I was experiencing, and every time I would go to the doctor, I would never get like a sense of urgency that I know needed to be presented to me. So it was always like, don't worry about it, just take this, and it'll go away. And guess what? It went away, right? And all right, I speak to my friends, coworkers, family, whatever, and they go through that too. So it doesn't seem abnormal. But I had a
Yeah.
question. I was like, nah, this is not really, I'm too young to be going through this. Like, why is this normal? Like, what's going on? So I had questions. And, that's when I started to, do more research. But, these symptoms are even way more common now, and there's a lot of people in my family that have these diseases, these common chronic diseases that shouldn't be common.
Mhm. Yes, one of the things that I like to talk about because of I live in the South. I am about 15 minutes outside of Montgomery, Alabama, and diabetes is a huge challenge here. So one of the things that I'm working really hard to do is go into the community and talk about diabetes, like the real. What are you experiencing? I like to talk about what are the challenges that you are encountering that are in opposition to a lifestyle change. Like I like to talk about that we're in the South, sweet tea is the drink of choice down here. And so when you have families who have done uh, eaten one way for so long, the shift is very challenging. But I also have that in my mind, but I want to hear from the people what they're really experiencing. So
Yeah.
up,
Well,
mhm, go ahead.
now I just want to say, first off, I've become a lot more empathetic about, these type of situations because, and you know what? I guess I started off like that too. All right. So let me clarify what I mean. I have close family members that have had type 2 diabetes, right? And when I was younger, we used to always see these commercials, not really commercials, but news stories, right, on the main news channel. And they used
Yeah,
to always say, "Well, after the break, we're gonna come back with a new breakthrough on a cure for type 2 diabetes." And I used to, run and get my family members who I knew had type 2 diabetes, not even understanding what it was,
yeah,
but I did see the debilitating effects. And I was like, "Hey, look, come, we're going to have the some type of medication or something that's going to help you, right?"
mhm,
And this is years ago, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And after them taking the medication, I would never see any improvement. You know what I mean? So again, going back to research and starting to find out, okay, well, what exactly is the cause? Is this something that you're just, they're always telling us this genetic and, you're just predisposed to it and there's nothing you could do about it. And, I
mhm.
come to find out over the years that that's not the case. It's a lifestyle disease, right?
That's right.
And like you mentioned, whenever you have something that, especially when it comes to food is such a personal ritual. And when you try to convince someone to make these changes, it can be very challenging because that's something close, So a lot of us, we turn to food because we're emotional beings. We're actually the only animal who turns to food when we're happy, when we're sad, when we're whatever, when we're bored. And to try to convince someone that that is probably the cause or one of the main causes is extremely challenging,
Yeah,
so you got to deal with that. And coming back to what I was saying about being more empathetic, at first I was, upset because you're someone that you love, someone that you care for, and you know that they can make the changes, but there's a resistance. But I become more empathetic, because you don't know what that person is going through. So I try to meet them where they are,
Yes.
and it's a delicate situation. So I've learned to, get as much information as possible as far as what they do for a living, what's the family situation like, what's their lifestyle, and try to come to. Sometimes you got to come to a compromise because not everyone's just ready to make a quick shift. Like I was. I was just in a situation where I was just ready. Not
Yeah.
everybody's ready, so you gotta coach them slow. So that's what I've learned to do over time.
Yes,
I don't know if
absolutely.
that answers your question, but yeah.
Well, I didn't really have a question. It was more of a statement, but I love how you presented your perspective, because as a healthcare professional, that's exactly what I intend to do, is to meet the community where they are. I can't start where I'm at. That's not going to help where they are. We're not going to mesh at that point. And so it is gathering that information. It is that assessment. It is, well, how do you feel about that? It's even working with mindset, right? That's another thing. It's also educating. So, you know, with my background in nursing, I'm in a prime situation where I can educate them and explain to them what actually happens in their body. So many of us didn't take nutrition classes. So many of us didn't get how our bodies function. And so if we could even possibly start there on how does my body really work, so that people understand the impact of what we're putting in our mouths, what we're putting in our minds, right? And so it's important. So I'm right there with you. I agree, to meet the community where they are and then work from there. Yeah, I love that um, about what you said. What other chronic healthcare conditions? I know you mentioned high cholesterol. That is something that's very prevalent in the community as well. What are some other chronic diseases that you have identified out there working with folks?
One of the main ones is definitely obesity, and another top is high blood pressure, hypertension. Those are the big ones. So if I were to say the big three or the big four, it would be type 2 diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and of course you got heart disease and cancer. So we're throwing another one for five. But those are the main ones. But as far as the easiest ones to tackle, they're all really in the same boat as far as easy ones to tackle, because very rarely do you have individuals who are um, I mean, we all have a genetic predisposition to something. That's just human. That's who we are. But it's very rare that you have someone who is born with something that they just can't get rid of. Like type 1 diabetes is different. You know, I don't think anyone's going to sit here and be like, "Oh, you could definitely get rid of that." It's possible, but can't guarantee that.
It's
But
challenging, right?
yeah, but to answer your question, hypertension. Hypertension is something I see all the time, and that's easily curable just with lifestyle changes, especially
Yeah,
nutrition. Yeah.
yeah. And mindset changes. Um, uh, I know so many people on blood pressure medicine. That's the next community education movement is hypertension. That's the next one. Um, I think that the first course of action for a lot of healthcare providers is to put them on the smallest dose of these medications. But then when we realize that it's not working, the doses escalate, the medications change, our bodies develop resistance, our bodies undergo side effects, and then it just spirals into a whole systemic breakdown, right? And so I like to explain to people that I serve that the very first suggestion from your healthcare provider should be a lifestyle change. Because if you don't change that, you can take all the medication that you want, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to change your lifestyle. You must change your lifestyle. So, Will and I are walking hand in hand on this. in terms of lifestyle changes, holistic perspectives, definitely that it's a must first and foremost. So tell the folks where we can find you. Tell our community where we can find you to find out more information. I know you told me you have a book as well. Please share that with our community.
Yeah, so you can find me at trueironwill.com, and that's where they have that's where I have all my social media, outlets and things like that. And yes, I my latest book, Young at Any Age: Secrets to Slowing the Aging Process. This is my finest work right here, and it's my personal experience not only with my issues but also with people around me, just like we said, just suffering from diseases that you really don't need to suffer from. And a lot of it has to do with the mindset, right? Like you mentioned, the mindset that I was in and the mindset that was so common
Yeah.
around us. So when everyone around you is, walking around with a similar mindset, you don't think that anything is wrong. But deep down, you know something's wrong. You just don't know what to do. So it's just about like my trials and tribulations and coming to the light, right? And when you get there, it's very difficult to go back. Let me tell you. So that's what my book's about, and it could be found on Amazon. So it's Young at Any Age: Secrets to Slowing the Aging Process.
Young at Any Age: Secrets to Slowing the Aging Process. Listen, let me tell you a little story before we wrap up about my dad. My dad is the youngest old man that I've ever seen. He always says that age is up here. That's his first age. It begins in your mental health, right? If you speak, oh, I'm an old man, I'm an old man, I'm an old man, what's going to start happening? Yeah, you're going to rapidly age. In his mind, he's always thinking about his youth, reflecting on his youth and how he can bring aspects of his youth into his maturity so that he can remain young at heart and in his physical. I'm telling you, my dad is one of the youngest old men that I have ever met. But
That's awesome. Because and when you think about it, we're just we're kids that have more responsibilities. That's what adults are. We're kids that have to pay bills and have other responsibilities. But when you lose that youthfulness, right? You can't do everything that you were able to do as a kid. You can't jump around, but you can jump around. You maybe can't jump as high. You can't jump for as long. Maybe not. But you can do a lot of things that you did as a kid. You just have to modify it. But what happens is we just stop doing it. So once you stop doing what you were designed to do by nature, yeah, like you said, you start getting old real quick.
yeah, I love the modification piece. I've seen people doing yoga in the chair. Yeah, I've seen people exercising while sitting down, still encouraging the movement. Modifications are so important. Until I had a personal trainer, I didn't realize how important modification was to exercise itself. Like, if I can't do, oh, there were burpees. I can't stand those things. I can't stand them.
Nobody can.
But a modified burpee, I can do the straight burpee. Like, it takes time. But with the modification, I was able to still do the activity just to suit me and what I could do, my capacity. I think that's a very important element of exercise that people exclude. They think they should go as hard as their trainer, but you're not your trainer, right? So there comes the uniqueness, the accommodations, the customization for each and every one of us, even inside of exercise and inside of our health in general. So, Will, I'm going to say thank you so very much for joining us today. I'm going to ask my community, if you need this kind of guidance, if you need to talk with Will, consult with him, please reach out to him. And when we have our summit, Will, would you come back as a speaker for us?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
Hey, I love when we get yeses on camera because that's the proof, right? That's the proof. Will, thank you so very much. We enjoyed this discussion, this conversation, and we just hope to see so many things come into bloom, blossom from this.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.